And it is the Saturday Coffee Klatch with Heather Lofthouse and yours. Did I say Heather Lofthouse?
No, you did. You said it beautifully.
And yours truly. I'm not speaking as clearly as I used to speak.
Should we get into it?
Because I'm 78 years old. And you don't speak as clearly when you're 78 years old or 81. Heather,
shall we?
Heather, what's the top question?
The top question is, can he do it?
Did you watch the NATO press conference?
Of course I did.
I wanted him either to knock it out of the park. I mean, be absolutely vigorous and on top of it, and just
no doubt,
like the State of the Union. Or I wanted him to be so awful. I mean, totally incoherent. I mean, as bad, if not worse, than the debate. In which case, the Democrats would make a decision and say, okay, he's got to be out, and Kamala Harris. But instead, it was more of the, we're in this purgatory, Democratic purgatory.
I know. It's in-between land.
And it's limbo. Nothing can happen, and nothing's happening. And the Democrats are terribly divided.
I know.
And it's bad for the party.
And the media loves to talk about it.
Well, that's all they're talking about.
I know.
I mean, all of the focus is off Trump and Project 2025 and all of the things that Trump, all the craziness and the things that he continues to say.
I know.
And yet, all we're talking about, and the Democrats are upset, and people are...
I know. And they said, so I watched, and I agreed with people who said, good on the foreign policy front, but some people went on about the foreign policy piece.
Well, he went on and on.
He went on and on.
But it was good. He did. I thought on foreign policy it was fine.
Well, it was a NATO conference, by the way.
And, well, look, the bar is pretty low. And he did it fine.
I know.
But
I do feel like we're playing that game. I mean, I know when he came off the debate stage, or when Jill came onto it, when the First Lady, and she said, you answered every question. And I just think, that's something... I think we've adjusted what we're looking for. We're holding our breath and we're white knuckling. And so we're like, what? Well, that was great.
Holding our breath. I mean, it's like watching somebody on a tightrope, on a high wire act. And are they going to fall? Are they not going to fall? And he didn't fall. Great.
It's that. And some, we had some of his one-liners when he told that one, I think it was Jonathan Sanger, the journalist, be nice. So we had some of that kind of fluid stuff that he does well.
And he also had the gaffes. I mean, he talked about, just before the press conference, he introduced
Zelensky as Putin.
As Putin.
But he kind of owned it-ish. I mean, it was what was done, but he kind of owned that one. He didn't own the one. And, of course, they ended the last question at the NATO press conference, saying, what about your Gaff Tonight? The Trump campaign has already used it for fundraising, and he said, well, look at that guy. Look at Trump, basically, he said.
Problem is he's under the microscope.
Oh, like nobody's business.
And he is, if he and his campaign are running the clock, and I think to some extent they are. I mean, next week is going to be the Republican convention. Democratic convention is in, 38 days? There's no way that the Democrats are going to change course if it gets that late.
Yep.
But if he's running the clock and the Democrats are divided and upset and angry, and the fundraisers are not fundraising,
it's not good.
It's the worst possible position to be in.
And the big funders are holding, right, on some of their pledges.
Yes. In fact, the biggest fundraisers made an announcement yesterday that 90 million pledges would not be fulfilled as long as Biden was the candidate.
Oof.
$90 million of pledges. Heather, this is a game of chicken.
Right.
Because if they don't come through, then Biden is seriously, he's in terrible shape. Even forget the gaffes, forget the age. You can't run a campaign with that much money being withheld.
I know.
But at the same time, if he doesn't leave on the basis of that threat, then what? Then he's...
No, it's so scary. So here's my question for you.
Can I just say,
please
have this question for me, but it would be scary under the normal circumstances. Right now, there is the strong possibility of Trump, a neo-fascist, being elected, and the House and the Senate going Republican, neo-fascist. This is not just your grandfather's Republican Party or your father's Republican Party.
And
This
your grandfather running against it.
and this is serious stuff. This is the potential, and I don't think I'm engaging in hyperbole here.
No.
This is the potential end of our democracy we're talking about. How can we be in the position we're in now?
I know, and the polls it's really, I mean, it's not good. The polls, the latest and the latest and the latest.
No,
and I know we have to take them with a grain of salt.
Take polls with a grain of salt, but when all of the polls are saying the same thing.
And in swing states and now in blue states, oof, it's not good. So here's my question for you. So you often talk about, where does the power lie? And in fact, I know this, that when you launched you were talking about do I do a Substack? Does it have a name? Should it be called Powerline? Do you remember? Because we were talking about power is such a key theme. So where are the power dynamics? Can you walk us through them? And where would the power come from to encourage him to pass the torch if it would happen?
Well, it's very clear that it's not Democrats. It's not congressional Democrats. I mean, they are hemming and hawing, and they're worried, obviously, particularly those who are in races that are close, because if you have somebody who's not popular at the top of the ticket, you are in deep doo-doo.
Yeah.
It's not the chattering class. I mean, almost every major op-ed writer, almost every opinion piece that has appeared in the New York Times, the
Actors.
Washington Post, you have George Clooney.
Right.
I mean, everybody is saying, get out. No, I think that the real power is the donor class. And this is when Biden said earlier in the week, I'm just not going to give in to the elites. And he called the Morning Joe show.
Scarborough.
And he said, I'm furious. I'm just frustrated with the elites, the donor elites. I mean, he basically, it's the first time I have heard a president of the United States, kind of, particularly a Democratic president, really agreeing with the proposition that we've got very, very wealthy people who are running the Democratic Party. And then he immediately after the Morning Joe show, he had a conference call with the big money people in the party. But they are the ones that are holding the strings right now, pulling the strings, holding the strings. They are the ones who are in power. And it's interesting, Heather, because this is like pushing, on the old keyboards, it used to be reveal code.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember
I
those?
remember
Are you
this
old
like
enough?
yesterday. No, I do know what you're talking about.
Because this is reveal code.
Yeah.
Joe Biden is pushing the reveal code,
Yeah.
and everybody can see who actually has the power in the Democratic Party.
Okay, but so if donors have the majority of power, what about the aides around him? What about people like Nancy Pelosi? What about Jill Biden?
Well, we don't know, obviously, what Jill Biden is saying. Yeah. Nancy Pelosi, earlier in the week, gave a little bit of cover to some Democrats. She said the president needs to make up his mind very soon. Well, obviously he has already made up his mind.
Right, but she backtracked a little bit too.
But it was a little bit of an opening. And she's a formidable, careful politician. She uses words carefully. There was nothing careless about what she said. I think that I've never seen the Democratic Party in this much disarray since, perish the thought, 1968.
Right. And that convention. Can I ask one thing I see it on social media even, right? I mean, I'm not the only one on social media, clearly. But there are people who say, how dare you even give any more air to this conversation about is Joe fit, his acuity. We have to be behind him 100%. The stakes are so high.
A lot of, people who follow my Substack say that. I mean, there are thousands of comments, and they say, let's get off this subject. Let's not even debate this subject. Let's just get behind Joe Biden.
He's made his decision.
He's made his decision. But the problem with that attitude is the public is not there. In fact, the polls are showing. Again, you've got to be skeptical of the polls, but the polls are showing tremendous erosion with regard to Biden, especially, as you said, in the swing states.
Yep.
We can't ignore that. But is there an heir apparent? Is there somebody who is better able than Joe Biden to beat back Donald Trump? The only person who could readily step in is Kamala Harris. And that's the real issue.
Yep. And it's it's interesting because people are calling him narcissistic, almost Trump-like in his choice. Some people are saying that. Some people are saying you got to stick by him no matter what. He'd have my vote no matter how he looked or what he did. But it's so fractured and fragmented. Is it, are there bigger implications? It's hurting us even if Kamala does, take the mantle, right? It's not good.
That's the longer this goes on in terms of limbo, purgatory, the more it hurts the Democrats. So there's got to be, now Joe Biden has made a decision, so it's not that he has to make a decision, but I think that the major funders and others have got to make a decision. And it is either just support Joe Biden and pray, or it is Kamala Harris. I think an open convention, as some people are arguing for, or having a kind of a pre-open convention, a beauty pageant where everybody who is interested, or maybe the 6 highest polling Democrats all have a chance to speak, and I just don't think that's realistic. It requires a discipline and organization on the part of the Democratic Party, which you can see is not there.
So interesting. But people who are fighting for it say it will drive attention. It will take that attention away from Trump. Of course we have interesting, fabulous, smart people in the Democratic Party. This idea that these are the only 2 candidates we have, we can prove them otherwise if we do this open.
Well, an open convention. I remember the 1968 convention, and there were problems that were not just the open convention.
Right.
There was Mayor Daley and his goons on the street and the police who were beating up thousands of protesters. It was chaos. And I think the Democrats and the Republicans decided after that they would not have an open convention. We're going to be talking about this next week because the Republican convention is coming up.
Yep.
And these conventions have now become basically infomercials. Nobody's really interested. They are just ways of showcasing potential up-and-comers, and everybody's saying wonderful things about the candidate.
I think people are interested, but it's just at a different level. They're not interested. It feels, what are we looking for, and what's the story, and can we catch someone? And people are tuned in right now.
Well, I don't think the question is who the people are.
Yeah.
Relative to the old conventions. Now, I am old
Right.
enough to remember when people were really tuned into
Right,
conventions
right.
because you didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And you had 60, 70, 80% of American adults tuned into watching these conventions, particularly after television. Heather, I don't think most people any longer are paying a great deal of attention to the conventions, particularly when the outcome is foreordained.
But I think they'll see, obviously, clips on
They'll see clips.
the internet. So
Yeah,
they're paying attention in that kind of...
And let's just pause on that point, which is a very important point. It is all now a matter of clips on the internet, clips on social media. This is where Joe Biden is hurting, because every time he stumbles, when he calls Trump Putin Zelensky, or when he calls
Other way. Zelensky,
Zelensky
Putin.
Putin. Did I just stumble? Or when he says, yes, my vice president, Trump, the stumble is repeated forever.
I know.
The old stumbles before the internet, before social media, they were forgotten. The collective amnesia sets in. But these stumbles are there, and they are used by the opposition, by the other party, over and over again. They're used by
immediately.
Fox News over and over and over and over again.
I know. Okay, in terms of timing, if he's going to bow out, when it's got to happen before. I
It's
just
got to
don't
happen last
understand.
year. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But really, when is it? The DNC is in however many days. I keep thinking it's going to be soon if it's happening, and then, or is it not happening?
Let me give you both schools of thought.
Yes, please.
My school of thought is it's going to happen right away because if it's not going to be Biden, somebody else has to introduce themselves to the American people as a presidential candidate very, very fast because people really need to know who this person is and get comfortable with this person if it's Kamala Harris. But the other school of thought is look at the short duration of campaigns in Britain. I mean, 5 days?
Right.
Or France or any place else. These short campaigns are, they work. The public's attention is riveted because they are so short, and they work much better than our long drawn-out campaigns. Even a campaign that is, that starts just before the Democratic Convention it's about 3.5 weeks, would, according to the second view, still have a lot of chance behind it.
Yeah.
The other point is that with Trump, the emotions are so high among not just Democrats, but independents and people who are wavering moderates, that whoever the Democrats put up, if they didn't put up Biden, whoever it was, would be such, again, according to the second point of view, such an extraordinary output of enthusiasm and excitement and fresh air, and that the Democrats would therefore just consolidate like mad.
Right. We'll see what happens, but there's so many unknowns and so many questions. It's hard to live through it. I find it, I might need to put something stiffer in my coffee cup for these.
Well, don't
it's
you
not
usually?
easy. No, I wish.
Yes.
I should
Well,
get on that.
I mean, put yourself in Joe Biden's shoes for a moment. Look, the pressure.
Wouldn't wish that on me or anyone else.
The pressure already on these people. I've worked for a bunch of presidents, and I know them during campaigns. The pressure is extraordinary. Every move is watched in detail, and the stakes are enormous. But now all of that, everything I just said, is 1,000-fold.
I know.
Joe Biden, I mean, what does he think about during the day? How does he get through his days?
I mean, I don't know. I think, honestly, I bet there's a certain level of just move ahead. And, I don't want to use the word denial, but I'll use the word denial because I think he's a politician through and through. I mean, I think he believes in the country. He is terrified for the country. And so he is gripping. I don't think it's rational back and forth all day, every day. Also, presidents are woken up in the middle of the night. There's fundraising. There's questions about war. I mean, the stakes are high, period.
This is not another issue. When he said in the interview last week, the George Stephanopoulos interview, that he needs to get more sleep and that he should be getting to bed about, I think at least what people heard was 8 o'clock.
I know.
And the reaction from a lot of people who are sympathetic is, presidents cannot do that. They need to be awake. They have to make decisions at all times, and they use that against him.
Right. But he tried to correct it on Thursday night, at least. He said, oh, come on, that's not what I meant. Let's start the fundraiser, a little earlier. We can all go home a little earlier.
This gets, interestingly, the point you just made, to the difference between the asymmetry between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Donald Trump says outrageous and outlandish things, and then he said, oh, well, I didn't mean that. Or somebody who works for him said, oh, he was joking.
And we move on.
Because we've normalized Donald Trump and his craziness. But this issue of age seems to be different for a lot of people. Its capacity to do the job. Many people who, like George Clooney, said that they had seen and talked to and knew Biden 6 months ago, 8 months ago, and
years ago.
And Biden now is different. And that's upsetting people.
I know.
Because it's the trajectory.
I know.
Where will he be a year from now?
That's
2
it.
years
It's a
from now?
4-year term. So we have the RNC next week. Also, Biden is speaking on Monday as part of counter programming, right, with NBC's Lester Holt.
Yes,
so we'll
that's
be seeing that.
another opportunity. Congress is going to be out. The House is going to be out.
Right.
So there's not going to be a revolt next week. And
The VP pick for Trump is coming out,
I think he's going to make that Wednesday.
and Don Jr. will introduce the person. I
Don
saw
Jr.
that.
It's going to,
Ugh.
one thing Trump knows is show business.
Yep.
So he's going to create a lot of excitement and tension around his VP pick, and Don Jr. is probably going to be the only one who knows it, and he's going to go out and say it. It's like the Academy Awards, and he'll have all three of the contenders. One of them steps up to the stage and gives his planned
They're
speech.
conventioning the convention. That's what it's about. And
Yep.
then Trump speaks Thursday, and you and I are going to be doing a live commentary fact check on his acceptance speech.
Please join us. It's not going to be just a fact check. We're going to do the fact check, but it's also going to be a watch along because we're going to be here, Heather and I, beforehand and in this little box as Trump gives his speech. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but I think it's important that you see it because
We can watch it together.
and we'll be,
Suffer together.
We'll be there together.
Who's going to be the VP pick?
I think it's J.D. Vance. I would bet on J.D. Vance because he's the most horrific. He's the smoothest. He's the best on his feet in terms of articulation. Now, that may be against him because Trump doesn't want to be upstaged.
Right. So then there's Doug Burgum, right? Burgum.
Doug Burgum,
He's North Dakota's governor. But I don't know that's about him, but that might be why he might be, like you just said, he doesn't take the limelight
well,
away from Trump.
it might be. I think he is a good, and Marco Rubio, no. I think Marco Rubio, Trump is just trying to string along for vengeance.
I know, which is mean. Oh, it's the bully.
Wait a minute. Donald Trump, mean?
Little
bully?
bit. Yeah, just a hair. Okay, so we'll do the fact check. Anything else on the RNC that we're looking for? Who's doing the opening? I can't remember
That's
who it
going
is.
to be the opening. That's actually interesting. It's going to be
That's right.
the Teamster president, the president of the Teamsters Union.
Ugh,
Now,
well
this
played.
this is the Republican National Committee and Trump who are trying to appeal to working class voters and union voters. This is a cynical maneuver because Trump is anti-union. The party is anti-union. Its backers are anti-union. It's done everything when Trump was president to harm and hurt unions and working people.
And would repeal everything that Biden has done that is pro-worker, like overtime pay
But
improvements.
in political terms, they see, there's no downside, they say. So the Teamsters, president of the Teamsters, I don't know why he's doing it, except because it gives him a little bit more power. It's like, Viktor Orban going to
Mar-a-Lago.
Putin and Mar-a-Lago, and also visiting Xi. So you get a Teamster president who's kind of going over to the other side.
Yeah,
Gives him more status, maybe. I don't know, but it's
I think
it's
so.
It's a problem.
Okay, well, thank you for your insights.
Oh, Heather, thank you. These are troubling times. I can't speak anymore. This is because I'm 78 years old, but here's the thing. I'm not running for president.
No.
And I made
Also, you own it pretty darn quickly. Before you even finish, you're owning it.
yeah. Anyway, I just, again, wanted to say, all of you, I want to thank you on behalf of Heather and me, but I also want to reassure you. As my mother always said, things work out in the end. Now, she was never clear about how far in the future the end was, but keep the faith. We'll get through this. Thanks.